In the history of baseball, governance of the sport has played a huge role in the success of the organization. We found that governance has changed drastically in Major League Baseball over time. We have decided to look at the history of governance, where governance in baseball is at today, and an idea of where we think we are going. As any good story starts, we will start at the very beginning of baseball and how governance in the league came to be. The governance of the game of baseball has evolved from an alliance of players known as the National Association to a central figure with considerable powers called the Commissioner. In the spring of 1857, the Knickerbocker Club of New York City invited local neighborhood bands of players to assemble for a game of baseball. It was there that they came up with the first set of rules. From there, the National Association of Baseball Players was formed. They prided themselves on keeping baseball for amateur players and not getting paid. By 1867, rivalries among teams had grown immensely and the National Association became much weaker. Eventually, the National Association divided teams into those that paid players and those that did not, and by 1869, the Cincinnati Red Stockings became the first professional team. From there, the National Association became practically extinct. With the rise of professional teams, the National League of Professional Baseball Clubs came to take power. The first members of the National League were Boston, Chicago, Cincinnati, Hartford, Louisville, New York, Philadelphia, and St. Louis. The main difference in this league was that there was a board of directors who decided what was important in baseball. At this point, there were many leagues that formed, which led to competitions for players. 3 organizations decided that there needed to be a central governing force to ensure that rules were being followed. The national agreement between the different leagues served as the ruling document to set the new standards. By the 1900s, the 2-league system that we have today was put into place by Byron Johnson, a former sports writer for the Red Stockings. The National League at the time refused to regard the American League as equal. In retaliation, the American League raised its offered salaries, and this drew many to the American League. In turn, the National League decided to finally recognize the American League as equal in 1903. This also served as the birth of the World Series. After 1903, the National Agreement created a National Commission, which at the time was 3 men who had the power to serve and carry out the provisions that were outlined within the National Agreement. However, the National Commission did not work as many had vested interest in a particular club. The famous case of the 1919 Fixed World Series is a great example of how the Commission was not operating fairly. This huge scandal led to the one-man commissioner system that we know today. As you can see, governance played a very important role in creating the pillars of baseball's foundation. In the present day, baseball's governance is much simpler than the multiple league system that was in place 100 years ago. Today, we have one singular commissioner for the entire league. Rob Manfred Jr. was elected as the 10th commissioner in 2014 and began his term starting in 2015. Manfred got his role because he managed the commissioner's office in New York City under former commissioner Bud Selig. He was chosen unanimously by all 30 ball clubs. In his short time as commissioner, he has started addressing domestic violence issues in the MLB. He has successfully implemented new sliding rules.
I'm referring to is Chris Coghlan breaking up a double play with Gung, trying to turn it.
That's really a soft going into. He grabbed the bag with his right hand and took him out with his left foot.
We're just playing the game hard, but there was no way in the world that the Royals were going to turn a double play right there. There really is no place for a takeout slide there.
And he ended up sliding awkwardly, but yeah, boy, he went right after his shin. And Coghlan going to the outside right after.
You saw it overturned.
Never.
Where we're sitting there and judging whether or not a toe touched the bag.
Never.
Ever.
Never.
Not once.
Not even close.
Anytime in your career, Gary Sheffield, have you ever seen that happen?
He is also focusing on fan safety and getting new technology in stadiums and reaching out to youths, encouraging them to get out and play ball. Baseball structure certainly has progressed, which can be attributed to the foundations that were set in the early days of the sport. As it continues to grow and thrive as a sport, it is important to take a look at where the governance of the sport could be going. Moving forward into the future, we think the commissioner is going to need to do something to bring baseball back to the good old days where it was the most popular sport and Americans couldn't get enough of it. If Rob Manfred continues to make changes the way he already has in his first year, we think that baseball will make its comeback. Nobody knows where the governance will go or how it could change, but baseball has been around for over 150 years, and we don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon.